My apologies for the quick ending of that last particular video. But let's continue, right? So, Esalen, when he presents the Theater of the Absurd, we learn about a couple of different ways to consider the absurd. First of all, he talks about the fact that when we talk about existentialism, we talk about absurdism. That he defines these terms fairly easily in the way that Sartre and Camus sort of did, right? He talks about them as Sartre explaining that responsibility is going to be our most important criteria when deciding how we're going to act in the world, and he talks about Camus seriously proposing a response to whether or not life is worth living. And he talks about the theater of the absurd as also presenting similar themes, not 100% the same, but very similar themes concerning whether things are whether things make sense, right? He defines the absurd, right, in two ways. First of all, he talks about it in terms of music, where absurd would mean disharmonious, right? Out of harmony, out of sync, and this is what we've already seen a little bit with what Camus has talked about, right? That the absurd is born from that distinction between what we expect, what we get, and the disharmony between them, right? We want something, we are offered something, they are not the same thing, and that clash in the middle is what provides us with the absurd. And the fact that we can't resolve that easily, that we cannot seem to get life and ourselves to agree in most cases, is what drives people to the despair that they feel, that makes people question whether life is worth living, right? The way that he talks about, the way that Esalen then talks about the theory of the absurd is done with a little bit of what Ionesco talks about, which is that for him, the absurd is the futility of something, right? That you're working hard to try to get something to work, and it simply does not, right? It is an extension of the absurdism of Camus, in that characters see this disharmony, and the play is about striving to bring these two sides together, when clearly it's not going to happen, right? And I think we see a fair amount of this in the theater of the absurd. We still tie it to that idea of the disharmony, the distance between what we want, what we get, and we also can tie it to these very big feelings that arise from that, right? Mostly, right, disappointment, some despair, at times some humor, and that this is meant, right, in a way to disrupt the way that we normally think and to help us see things in a new way, in a different way. When we identify that this does not need to be an intellectual exercise, this can be an experiential exercise to begin with, that then, right, we can process afterwards, but process in the way that it affects us, and, right, take a look intellectually at the plays. I think we arrive at a happy medium of being able to feel, being able to understand, being able to accept that there are going to be things that we're just not going to get and understand, and that in certain cases we're not necessarily meant to be looking for anything to get, right? That we can look at this in kind of the same way that we might look at a cartoon show, right? If we think about cartoons, if we think about the way that cartoons, even in the 1960s and 70s, if you watch those old Looney Tunes cartoons, right, you were never watching them for, necessarily a message, right? You were never necessarily watching them in order to say, I'm looking for a logical story that takes me from point A to point B. Sure, at one point in time, right, the Roadrunner is trying to escape from the Coyote. The Coyote keeps trying to catch the Roadrunner. The Roadrunner will always escape, right? This could be seen, right, if it wasn't humorous, as a desperate, despair-driven effort to get food. The Coyote will never eat again, and we could look at this as, well, what if the Coyote never catches the Roadrunner? Will the Coyote actually die? We don't think about it that way, though, right? Because the situation makes us laugh, gives us a humorous idea of life, right? And we don't look at it and say, well, boy, that was kind of a rehash of the same episodes we've always seen. Every time we see Roadrunner and Coyote, we look forward to, right, what's going to happen, because it's fun and it's funny, and it has physical, depictions of ridiculous violence, people running into walls, people being blown up with dynamite, people having anvils dropped on them, people falling from great heights and leaving imprints in the ground, right? Things that, if they were done in real life, would be absolutely horrifying, but that we can look at and say, right, this is a humorous attempt. Is there a message behind Roadrunner and Coyote? Sure, you know what? Academics do this all the time. That's what we do, right? We try to find a meaning. We try to say, well, the deeper meaning of the Roadrunner and the Coyote really is this hunger for life, that it's an inescapable, desire to have something that we cannot get. It's the disappointment in life. It truly is the absurd in a nutshell, because it's all about the way that the Roadrunner wants something that he will never be able to have. The difference between what he expects and what he gets is always, always, always going to be huge, right? He'll never be able to actually catch the Roadrunner, because if he did, then in a way, right, life would be over. If he catches the Roadrunner, life has ended, because now there is no more goal, there is no more chasing, right? Right, you can get really deep. You can get really insanely deep like that if you want to, but I think in the same way, when we look at the theory of the absurd, we are going to try to intellectualize a little bit more after we've watched it, right? But I want us to take the opportunity to experience, to listen, to feel. This is something you may wish to watch with your group. And really, I would recommend that if you're going to watch it, try to watch it with other people, because it's often, I believe, helpful to inquire about other people. How are you feeling about this, right? What do you think is going on? Or simply, right, what are people's reactions to it? Some people find the theory of the absurd pretty funny. Some people find it incredibly sad and tragic, right? It depends on where you are. And that is the last point we're going to make in a very short follow-up to this video. So come back for that.